Ta-da! Look, I'm wearing a hat today. How cool's that? I don't have to wear the headset anymore because I bought this like ridiculously expensive mic. I know you like this microphone, right? Podcasts, right? I think the microphone's suitable for ASMR as well. Let me know if that's not the case. Oh, the fun that we're gonna have, all 7 of us. Yes. Let me know if they. Obviously, I haven't done like proper sort of level checks and things like that. So let me know if the microphone is loud enough or quiet or just, yeah, there we go. It's unlisted. Why is it unlisted? Have I messed up? Have I messed something up? I've probably messed something up somewhere. I don't care. Whatever. I mean, I sent out links to the thing. Unlist live replay once stream ends. No, don't know. I don't know. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You guys all have the link. I wonder why it's unlisted. I wonder if I can fix that on the fly. Probably not. Let's have a quick look. Let's go. Check and Z. Videos live. Okay. Cool. I mean, I've set it to public now. I assume it just is public now. Who knows? Who cares? Here we are. So I assume that the sound of my voice is fine, and everything's all good, right? Yeah, no, I know not everyone's on the Discord, but I also sent it out and show my homework, so literally no one has an excuse. Cool. Right, so Hangman, yeah? Hopefully you guys have had a good old crack at solving the Hangman thing yourself, and are maybe looking for some tips on how to improve, or maybe there's a couple of bits where it was like you sort of know what you need to do, but you're not entirely sure how to do it. So let's have a look. So the whole point of the Hangman challenge was to get you used to importing text files, reading in those text files, and also using input validation. So let's just have a think about what we need to do. One of the things, I mean, if we go through a game of Hangman, right? What do? You let's choose a random word. That's the first thing that we do in any game of Hangman. Choose a random word, yeah? And then guess a letter in that word. And then there's a couple of things that could happen. If the letter is in the word, then we are going to show the position of the letter in the word, and if it's not, otherwise we are going to, what are we going to do? Otherwise we are going to increase progress along the what should we call it? Along the execution pathway. There you go. There's some management speak for you. And basically, keep doing that until either all the letters in the word have been guessed, which is a win for the player, or The man is fully hanged, which is a loss for the player. Can't type. Player. Okay, I mean that's basically what we're doing. Okay, so that's not how you spell position. That's how you spell positon, which is not a word. Positron is a word, which is an anti-electron. How about that? How about what? How about that? I may be doing that a few times throughout the podcast. Yeah. I'm supposed to be making a video for my new sixth form students as well. I've got to get that done by the end of the day, so a little bit stressed. Oh, so this is the process that I go through when I'm designing these sorts of programs. Now, what I would normally do, obviously, is sit down and meticulously plan it. But that wasn't the thing that I asked you guys to do. I just asked you to program it. So I will have a look. I go through the process of how do I play a game of Hangman on my own. Right, okay, so now that I know roughly what I need to do, how do I actually write the program to do that? What's with the tricorn? I mean, why wouldn't you wear it? Why wouldn't you wear a tricorn? I don't have to wear my headset anymore. So I'm taking the opportunity to wear a hat. Do what I want. Okay, so we know what we need to do, and it might be that, okay, I don't know how to do all of that stuff, so you break it down into stages. Choose a random word. Well, let's just take that. Choose a random word. What are the constituent parts of that? How can we break that down into I don't have a Panama hat. I do have a couple of other hats. Maybe I'll get those other hats in a moment. How do we break down that? Choose a random word into the things that we need to do. So choosing a random word consists of load a text file full of words. Let's read the contents and then choose a word at random. Okay, we have taken random. We've taken that one step and we've broken it down into 3 smaller steps so that we can work on those smaller steps individually. Okay, so let's just ignoring the rest of this stuff down here. Let's work on this bit. I'm just going to get rid of that there. So we're obviously going to need to choose something at random, which means we are going to need to import the random module. So we're going to go import random is the first thing. Okay, if you don't have import random, you won't be able to randomly select a word. Now what I'm going to do for each of these things, I'm going to create functions for them. It's a good habit to get into, creating functions for the various things that you're going to do. So we're going to create a function called select word. Or let's choose word is easier. Choose word. And whatword. Choose word. And doesn't need any arguments. I'm going to put a doc string in here, just so that I know what the function does. I mean, it's going to be that stuff, right? Load in the words.txt file and choose a random word. Okay, and it returns the randomly selected word. Simple, right? Cool. So let's have a think about what it actually needs to do. First of all, we need to load the text file. So it's a straightforward process. We're going to open the file in read mode, and we're going to read the contents, and then we're going to close the file. The most efficient way of doing that is by using the with syntax that I showed you in the video about opening files and whatnot. So if you're not sure about that, it's probably best if you go back and check that out. So we're going to say with open, and the name of the text file is words.txt as file. Okay, this will ensure that we do the thing that we need to do and then we close the file. Okay, now some of you might have done file equals open words.txt and then done all of this stuff and then close the file. I prefer this way because you don't forget to close the file. So we are going to... I mean, we can do this all in one go. We can do it all in one line, really, but I'm going to break it down into multiple lines just so that you can see what's going on. So, let's say contents equals file. You'll notice, by the way, I haven't actually specified the mode. By default, it opens in read mode. I want to say that. I'm paranoid now, so I'm actually going to specify read mode. Okay. Contents equals file.read lines. I'm using read lines, right? Because read lines reads the whole contents of the file, and it constructs a list where each line in the file is a separate item in the list. And the reason I'm doing that is because if you have a look at my words.txt, you'll notice that it's just a bunch of words and each word is on a separate line, right? So in theory, we should be able to pull all that stuff in. So contents equals file.readLine. Now, after I've read the contents of the file, I don't need the file anymore, so I'm not going to do the rest of it inside this with block. If I was doing file equals open words.txt, I would close the file after doing this one thing. You should always try and do the minimum amount of stuff with the file open. Do what you need to do once you've opened the file, close the file as soon as you can, and then carry on with the stuff. Because we're storing it in this variable here, contents. It's still going to exist once the file has closed. So now I can do, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it on multiple lines, and I'm going to break it down and show you how you can make it more efficient by reducing the amount of steps that you go through. Okay, so we're going to say word equals random.choice. Now random.choice goes through a list of items and choose one at random. Now we've already got a list of items. It's called contents. And so it's going to choose one of those words at random. And then it is going to return the word. Okay, now I can test that this works just by saying print choose word. If I run that, it's pulled out the word little. Okay, let's run it again. It's pulled out the word tendency. Little, tendency, past, attempt, bottle, pour, fly, now, expert, fly, relation, across. Yeah, okay, this is obviously working. Okay, now it's working, but we could tidy this up a whole lot. It's not looking particularly wonderful right now. Instead of saying word equals random.choice contents return word, we can get rid of this whole step of storing this in a variable and then sending that back. We can just say return random.choice contents. Okay, that's that. We could even do something like that. Instead of saying contents equals file.readlines, we could just say return random.choice file.readlines. Okay, I'm going to keep it separate because I want to make sure that we're doing the opening the file, doing the thing, closing the file, and then returning the stuff just to make sure. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Does that make sense to everyone? No one knows. Yes. Yes, says James. Good. Powerful yes. Strong yes. Hard yes. However, there is something that I want to double check. Because here's what I'm going to do. Right, to double check that this is working as intended, because I'm savvy enough to anticipate these sorts of problems. You guys might not realize it, and this might cause problems in your program later on, right? I'm going to say this, right? Word equals choose word, right? And then I'm going to say print word, len word. And what this is doing is it's going to randomly choose a word using our code here, and then it is going to print out that word, and it's going to print the number of letters in that word. Now, you may be a little bit surprised as to what you get. You may not be surprised. Some of you might already know what I'm driving at here. So you can smile to yourselves and say, haha, I've anticipated what's going on here. But let's just run that and have a look. We've got the word ant. Apparently, ant has 4 letters in it. Let's run it again. The word right apparently has 6 letters in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's that 6th letter? Well, it's not adding an extra letter. The extra letter is actually there in here, right? It's the extra letter is on every single line of this thing. It's not a blank space. Look, I can go to the end here. There is no blank space on the end of any of these words. What do you think that extra character is that's being added? Yes. Yes, return. It's an end line. It's a new line character. Okay? In fact, if we did something like this... don't know if this will work. Try this. You can see what I've done here is instead of printing out the word, I've printed out each letter that is in the word, and you can see we've got SOLID \n, which is the new line character. Okay, so obviously we need to strip that out before we actually return the word here. So we can use our friend rstrip. I hope we can use our friend rstrip. Let's just double check that. There we go. And it's now pulled out the word garden, and it's pulled out the word family. You'll notice that there is nothing on the end. rstrip. What does the R stand for? Right, I believe. Let's just have a quick look at the old Python documentation. rstrip. It says, returns a copy of the string with trailing characters removed. So it's basically anything, if you've got, if you leave it, you can specify like the end of the, you can specify the end of the word if you need to, but most of the time we'll just use that to trim off any additional white space characters from the end of the word. Okay? So, we've got our first function. We've got our function that chooses a random word from our text file. Okay? Hopefully, it looks vaguely similar to what you've got. I'm just going to go back to... nope. Printing the word and the length of the word. Just so that we can see that it's properly calculated. Substance has nine letters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, good. Cool. So we've got our choose word. We're done with this bit. I can now delete that stuff because it's all here in my choose word function. I've done some testing of the function. Okay. I can delete this stuff because that was just testing my function. Okay. So I've tested that stuff now. Some of you might be thinking, oh, how do you test that with invalid data? Well, there is no data that you're feeding it. So you don't test with invalid data. You just test multiple times to make sure it's actually doing the thing that you want it to do. Right. So next up, we are going to... This whole thing is a... this whole thing here is a loop. It's kind of rubbishly written. This is not really pseudocode. This is just me blasting ideas down. That's not a particularly good way of explaining what's going on, right? But we do want to be able to... something that I didn't put in here was display the chosen word with underscores instead of letters, replacing the underscores with any correctly guessed letters. Okay, I think that should probably be our next function that we do. This display the word. Okay, so we're going to create a new function called display word, and it's going to take a single argument, which is it going to take a single argument, or is it going to take 2 arguments? We want to be able to say display this word, and these are the letters that have been guessed so far. So we're going to pass 2 variables to it. I'm going to try and avoid using global variables here, just to give you a feel for how we sort of avoid that in the real world here. So we want to be able to display a word, which is going to be word, and we want to know which letters have so far been guessed. So let's call that I guess guessed letters. Okay, now remember, this guessed letters, that doesn't have to be correctly guessed letters, right? It's just a list of letters that so far we have tried. Now obviously we're going to have to pass that info to the function, but we'll get there. Okay, so we are going to add our doc string here, and what's it going to do? It's going to say display the word with underscores, with letters replaced by underscores, except where those letters have already been guessed. So 2 parameters. Word is going to be a string, and it is going to be the word to display, display, and param guessed letters is a list, and that is going to be, I mean, it could be a string. I kind of want to make it a list though, even though list and string would both work in this situation. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to make it a list just because it's going to be easier. It's going to make more sense to you guys. The letters which have already been guessed. I make no apologies for that spilling over there. And what's it going to return? Now here's the thing, is it actually going to return a value, or are we going to actually want to display this directly and not return anything? So I mean, the question that you need to ask yourself is, should this function actually print something out, or should it generate the word and then let a different function print it out? And at the moment, because I haven't done any proper planning, I'm going to say we're going to just print it out. We're not going to return anything. I might change my mind on that. Okay. Remember, anytime you're programming, nothing you do is ever set in stone. You can always go back. So display the chosen word with underscores instead of letters, replacing the underscores with any correctly guessed letters. You can do this super quick if you know what you're doing, right? But I'm going to do it the long way to show you guys like what's going on. Okay, so we have a word. We have a list of letters. What we need to do is we need to go through each letter in our word and we say, right, this letter, I know what this letter should be. Is that letter actually in the list of letters that they have guessed? Because if it is, then we know that they've guessed that letter, so I display the letter. If it's not, they haven't guessed that letter yet, I'm going to display an underscore. And what I'm going to do here, I'm not going to print things out as we go along. I am going to build up a string. Okay, so we're going to start out, let's call it output string. Output string equals, and we're going to start off with nothing in there. Okay, don't give up. Don't give up. I mean, we're barely. You should, at the very least, you should understand all of this stuff, because that's just going back to what we did with the loading of the stuff, and the displaying of the word is going to make more sense when we go through the function here. Okay, so we're going to output a string, and we're going to start off with an empty string. As we go through this loop, we're going to build it up and build it up and build it up until we've got our word. I mean, if I show you this on paper, yeah, let's say for instance my word is lemons, word of the week. Okay, there's my word, I've written it down. That's going to be the word that we pass to the function here. And let's say the letters that I've currently guessed is the letters that we've currently guessed are E and O. Okay, so that becomes our list that we're sending. So this is what it's going to look like. Okay, we've got lemons, we've got E, and we've got O. Have you got words.txt in the bit on the left? Yes. There. Oh, you're talking to Evie. Yeah. Okay. When you say it doesn't work, what specifically doesn't work? I mean, you might be better off. Right. So when you download the file, you've got to make sure that it goes into your project folder. You can see my project folder is documents, programming, lessons. Okay. When you download it, you've got to specify the folder that it goes into. Otherwise, it'll be somewhere on your computer. Yeah. It's like when you're creating an HTML file. Yeah. You've got to make sure that the images that you download are in the same folder as all of your HTML files. If you can't find it, you're going to have to look at where you downloaded it and copy it in there. All right. So this is where we're starting. This is our starting point. We're going to go through a loop, right? The first time I go through this loop, yeah, the letter that we're looking at is going to be L. Yeah. So the letter is L. There it is. And currently we've got a list of guessed letters which are E and O. L does not exist in there. So instead of writing L, I'm going to write underscore. Yeah. So I add that to my list that I'm building up, my string that I'm building up. The next letter that we go through is E, right? There is the letter E. There is the letter E. I can't do this. I've got E in my list of guessed letters. Well, because it's in my list of guessed letters, well, I've just spilled coffee all over the place. We are going to now have underscore E as our string that we're building up, and so on and so forth. The next letter in our list is, the next letter in our string is M. M is not in that list, E or O, so we end up with underscore, E, underscore, and so on and so forth. That's how this is going to be built up. Okay? And the way that we do this, without spilling coffee all over the place, is we are going to say for I in range len. Are we going to say for I in range len? No, we're not. We're going to say for letter in word. For letter in word, right? This is going to go through each letter in the word, and it's going to assign it to the temporary variable letter. Okay, standard for loop stuff. If letter in guessed letters, so if that letter exists in this list of guessed letters, we are going to say output string plus equals letter. Okay, so if that letter exists in our list of guessed letters, we're going to add that letter to our currently building up output string. Otherwise, we're going to add an underscore. Output string plus equals underscore. Yeah? There we go. By the end of this for loop, we will have a string which is comprised of one or more underscores and 0 or more letters. Yeah, and then all we have to do is print that out. Print output string. Right, simple. You can reduce the amount of lines of code in there, but that still looks, to my mind, that seems easy enough to follow. Right, and we can test this out as well. Right, let's just test it by doing something like this. We're going to say display word, and we'll use that same example. We'll say lemons, and the list of letters that we've guessed are E and O. So in theory, we should get underscore E underscore O underscore underscore printed out, right? If I run that now, what do we get? Moment of truth. There we go. It's printed it out. Underscore E underscore O underscore underscore. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably think, oh God, I don't like the fact that there's those underscores run together. So what we might want to do is at the end of each of these loops, just put a space in there. So output string plus equals space, like that, and that would space it out a little bit, and that makes it a little bit easier to see how many letters there are. Okay, look, I can change if I just send an empty list. We haven't guessed any letters yet. When I run that, look, it's printed out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 letters. Yeah, does that make sense? What's going on here? Oops. Is that a yes? I have to go and get a tissue because there's coffee all over my desk now, right? So we have currently done 2 parts of our program. Okay, we've chosen the word, and we have got something that displays the word, right? So because we've created functions for each of these, we don't have to worry about copying and pasting any code or anything like that. Anytime we want to display the word, we can just feed it the word that we want to display, and so on and so forth. Okay. Why do you have 2 outputs in else? What? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Yeah, I mean the spaces that James, when you say mine has spaces between the underscores already, it depends on the font you're using. The font that I'm using for my output, the underscores run together. Let me just double check something. In my command terminal, they kind of do, but at the same time they don't. It's all dependent on the font, so it's up to you. You have an extra output in the else. Nope. If letter in guessed letters, output string plus equals letter, else output string plus equals underscore. Where's the extra one? Right, just going to go and get tissue. I might also change my hat, so I'll be back in 2 minutes. See if you can work out what's going on, and think about the next thing that we're going to do is we want to ask the user to guess a letter, and then maybe we can start putting some of these things together. Oh, if you're talking about this bit here, Ben, all that does is add a space after each letter in my output string. Right then, how we doing now? Look at, do I look shady? Got the word .txt files on the left hand side. Excellent, good. We're off to a cracking start. Can you do sep equals yada 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 and end equals is that, I can't actually see what's going on. You know what, this hat is I'll put the peak up. I mean, I couldn't actually see what was going on. I was too 1940s. I'm not sure where you would put that stuff, or do you mean in the printing? I see what you're getting at. Like, so instead of putting that in there, if we do that, yeah, it does not work. You know what? I've never used that before. Oh, I believe that only that sets the separation character if you're outputting multiple strings, but we're not. We're outputting a single string here. So there's that. So I'm just going to keep it simple like this. All right. I mean, end equals space. All that does, that's going to replace the character at the end of the string. So it will you'll just get a space right at the very end, which is not what we want. Okay. Cool. Right. So we've done those two bits there. Okay. And we've done a little bit of testing. At the very least, we've tested to make sure. So here's another thing that we should really test. It should be able to handle it. If I put a bunch of letters in here, which don't actually exist in the word, we should still get a whole bunch of output without it messing up. Okay, if I run that, we still got all of that stuff. Okay, so it's not affected by that. That's all good. Why do I have this error? Type error, displaying word missing one required positional argument, guessed letters. Because, right, so when it says missing positional argument, it means it's expecting to receive these things here, separated by commas. So it's expecting to receive a word, and it's expecting to receive a list of guessed letters. So you can see in my function call, I specify a word, then I put a comma, and then I've got my list of letters that I'm guessing. If you just put something like that, just the word on its own, when I run it now, I will get the same error there. Type error, display word missing one required positional argument. Okay, so you need to specify guessed letters by putting a comma, even if there are no letters that you've guessed so far. Yeah, you feed it an empty list, and that will cause it to work properly. Does that make sense? I ran my program and nothing printed. Did you call the function? Did you call the function? Okay, make sure that you are calling that function. I'm gonna test out now joining these two functions together. Right, I'm gonna choose a word using my choose word function, and I'm gonna feed it in to display word here. Right, so I am going to say word equals choose word, and then I am going to display my word. Let's run that. Ooh, who knows what the word could be? I mean, we could play a really weak form of Hangman here. I'm going to guess an E. I'm going to guess a T, maybe, and I'm going to guess an S. Let's see if that turns up in. Nope, none of those letters are in the word that was guessed. Okay, so you see how this is going, right? One thing that I'm also going to set up at some point is a list to hold the the guessed letters, right? If we call it guessed letters, not only do we want to be able to display that on screen for the user, but we also want to be able to pass it to our function here. Generally speaking, it's a bad idea to use the same variable names here as you do up here. In fact, it's given me a thing there. So, but yeah. Okay, we're kind of ready for the next bit. Ready for the next bit. So we've got right. If the letter is in the word, show the position of the letter in the word. Well, we've kind of done that bit already. Otherwise, increase the program along the execution pathway. We're getting up to that bit now. We want to actually get some player input in here. So we're going to create a function called guessLetter. Right. We are going to say guessLetter. Is it going to need any arguments? Perhaps we'll see about this, right? So this is the function where we're actually going to say to the user, "Oi, what letter are you guessing?" And this is really the function where we're going to put our validation in there. Okay. So first of all, we'll keep it super simple, and we'll say letter equals input guess a letter. Put that in there so it looks kind of cool. And then if we don't do any validation whatsoever, we can just return that letter. Right. So if I run that now, I could do something like this. Print guess letter. Right. I'm just going to comment out this stuff here. Right. Obviously, our function is going to have way more stuff than just this in it. At the moment, I'm just showing you what's going to happen without any validation. When I run this, guess a letter. Okay, this is what it's going to look like. I guessed the letter apples. Okay, and yeah, cool. That's brilliant. Now, we need to put some sort of validation on here. Can someone suggest the type of validation that we're going to need to add to our guess letter function? Presence check. Yeah, we need to make sure they've actually typed something in. Make sure the string is 1 character long. Yes. Now, there's 2 ways that we could do that. We could either keep on saying to them, just before I carry on with that, you said range check. What would be the range in this instance? You're right, of a fashion, but what would be the range in this instance? Yeah. So while you ponder over that, what I was saying was, we could say to them, oi, just type in a single letter, yeah? Or we could just automatically take the letter that they've already got. Like the first letter of what they've typed in. So if I typed in apples, it would just take the letter A. That's something that we could do. But let's have a proper think about this. 0 is less than letter is less than 2. Right, so we'd be talking about len letter there, but you're thinking along the right lines. So I'm going to put a doc string in here, and we're going to say asks the user to enter to guess a letter, should we say? We should probably convert it to either uppercase or lowercase. I mean, depends what we're going to be working in. Usually, if you're doing Hangman, you work in uppercase, right? But we've got to make sure that we choose a case and stick with it. I think in our word list everything's in lowercase, so we'll stick with lowercase for now. Checks if it is valid, and I'm going to put some specifics for validation here. Is a letter, because obviously we need to check to make sure that it's not a number. That's one form of validation. So is a letter has not already been guessed. Because if you say if you've already guessed the letter E and you guess E again, no, you shouldn't do that. And are there any other checks? I mean, is a letter? I'll put some data entered. There's our validation there. So return the letter if valid, else false. So we're going to either return the letter if it's a valid letter, or we're going to return false. Yes, check if they entered anything. That's what I put here. Some data entered. You know what? I'm going to change that to presence. You can do a presence check. Okay. So here we go. We are going to set that. Can anyone remember what it's called when I've got a Boolean value which I'm using to check whether something is valid or not? I'm going to use I'm going to say valid equals false. What's that known as? There's a word beginning with F. I think I mentioned it briefly. If anyone can remember that would be impressive. It begins with an F. I'll let you think about that while I implement this this function. So we're going to say valid equals false, and we are now going to say if letter, if len letter is less than 1. Please actually enter a letter. Return false. We don't actually need to set that there. Return false. So if they haven't actually typed anything in, we're going to say please actually enter a letter, and then we're going to return false. If they have typed something in, we're going to, well, let's just ask them to type a single letter in first. So we're going to say if len letter is greater than, sorry, need to get those brackets in there. If len letter is greater than 1, we're going to tell them single letter, please. And then we're going to return false. You know what? I don't actually need this here. I'm going to get rid of that. So that checks to make sure they've actually typed in a letter. This is to make sure that they've typed in a single letter. I am going to say on their input, we are going to convert that to lowercase right off the bat. Okay, that makes some of the validation a little bit easier to check, right? We now need to make sure that what they've typed in is actually in the alphabet. So we can do it like this. If letter not in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. So if the letter's not in the alphabet, we're going to give them a message saying, type in an actual letter. Okay, and then we're going to return false. So if they haven't typed in anything, there's that. We've checked for that. Oh, we need to make sure that it's not been guessed already. So we need to say we are going to have our list of guessed letters, right? We've got this guessed letters. But we need to define that before we get to this point, or we need to pass it as a variable. So we can say if letter in guessed letters, and it's going to stay red for now until I fix that. We're going to print you've already guessed that one. And then we're going to return false. Okay, so we will pass the list of guessed letters to our function here. Actually, we don't need to do that. We're not changing the value of the letters here. So as long as we've got this somewhere before we get to that point, we should be all right. So this checks to make sure they've actually entered a letter. If they haven't, it's going to return false. I might have typed Q twice. It doesn't, right? Okay, so it wouldn't matter. I am going to fix it there, but thanks for pointing that out. It would not matter if the Q was in there already. I mean, I could type in the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. And the functionality would still be the same. Doesn't matter if there's duplicate letters in there, but yes, well done for pointing that out. So if they haven't typed in a letter, we're returning false. Boom, and then we're out the function. If they have typed in a letter, but they've actually typed in more than one letter, then we are going to tell them what you're doing, type in a single letter, and then we're going to return false. Boom. If they've got through both of those checks, and then it turns out that what they've typed in is not actually a letter of the alphabet, it's a number or something like that, we are going to say to them, type in an actual letter, and we're going to return false. If they've made it through all of those checks, but the letter that they have guessed is already in our list of guessed letters, which we're going to keep track of throughout the whole program, then we're going to tell them you've already guessed that one, and we're going to return false, right? And if they made it through all of that, then we know that their letter is valid, so we return the letter. Okay? Does that make sense what's going on there? Note that in our guess letter function, there is no loop. We don't ask them to enter it again, right? All guess letter does is it asks them to enter a letter and it validates that once. It's going to be the job of a different function to continually ask them to guess a letter. Okay? We could have it in this function, but it potentially overcomplicates things. Okay? Does this make sense, all of this validation that's going on there? Is the question. Makes sense. Yes. Yes. Good. So we've now got three functions. We've got choose word, which is going to randomly choose a word. We've got display word, which is going to display the word that we have chosen. And then we have got guess letter, which is going to ask the user to input something and then validate it. So we're almost at the point where we can start putting this together. I will tell you guys now, probably not going to get this finished by the end of the stream. Okay. Why is it saying that guest letter is not defined? You've got to make sure that you have defined it somewhere outside of that function. I've defined it just under here. Okay. So although you couldn't see it in there, it's actually down there. Okay. Cool. So I can now get rid of that. If the letter is in the word, yada yada yada. Right. Let's start putting. So how much longer is the stream? It's about 5 minutes. So I'm just going to try and tie some of this stuff together. We are going to start off guest letters equals 0. We are then going to say word equals choose word. Okay. So that's us setting up our initial variables. We haven't guessed any letters. Here is the word. Okay. For now, let's have an infinite loop where we always get to constantly check this. We're going to say while true. By the way, this is not how it's. This is not the final version, right? While true, what we want to do is display word, and we are going to pass word, and we are going to pass guessed letters. Okay, and then we are going to ask the user to guess a letter, but obviously we're going to ask them again. You know, if they're if it's not valid. So we're going to say guess equals guess letter, right? And then we are going to say, in fact, we're going to do this. We're going to say while no, we are going to say valid equals false. That was a flag, by the way. That was the thing that I was getting at. We're going to say while not valid. Guess equals guess letter. If well, I don't really need to use valid, do I? I can just use guess. I'm trying to keep this like semantically understandable. Let's just say guess equals false while not guess. That doesn't really follow particularly well, but that's going to what these 3 lines are doing is going to constantly ask the user to guess. So you know what, I'm going to put valid guess equals false while not valid guess. That makes it a little bit easier to understand. Valid guess, okay, equals guess letter. That makes it a little bit easier to understand, right? So I think I'm going to leave it there, because if I run that now, what's going to happen is it's going to choose a word, it's going to display the word, it's then going to ask the user, we need to say guessed letters dot append valid guess. So we're asking the user to guess a letter, and then we're adding them to our list of valid guessed letters. Okay. If I run that just as a proof of concept here. Oh, it's chosen a word. Guess a letter. Let's try E. Nope. It should probably display the letters that we've guessed. T. Oh, cool. We've got some T's in there. Wicked. A. Let's try an A. Something tat. Why? Tatty. No. I reckon it's potato. Oh, yes! Rock and roll. I mean, it's far from an actual working Hangman, but the core functionality is there, right? So we're getting close to getting it working. Obviously, at the moment, it's just an infinite thing. And there's no winning or losing as yet, but hopefully this has helped you iron out some potential problems with your code, and also giving you a view into the thought process that goes into writing these programs. And also put your mind at ease, maybe, because if it takes me more than an hour to write this stuff, and it takes you a few hours, then you're obviously doing something all right. You're never going to sit down and code something up like this in 5 minutes flat. Now, obviously, it's taken me a little bit longer than it normally would, just because I've been explaining it as I go along. But hopefully this is all making sense. We will finish this off next stream, which is supposed to be Friday, but if you guys want me to do it earlier, I might be able to swing that. Okay, any questions before I go? It looks more elegant than my code. Yeah, I mean, this is actually, I could use far fewer lines of code to do this. I'm doing it specifically to show you sort of like some of the techniques of good coding, should I say? So using functions and passing variables rather than using global variables and things like that. I mean, I could have easily written this whole thing in far fewer lines. So don't be afraid that your code is awful just because it doesn't look as fancy as this stuff. If it does the job, that's a good starting point. Mine is not adding the letters. When you say not adding the letters, do you have this line here, which is actually appending the letters to your guessed letters string? Yeah, and also is guessed letters, that should be defined outside of this while loop. Yeah, that is something to look at. I will post all of this code up in Discord so that you can pick bits out of it. So let me just copy all of that and I'll paste it in. Hopefully that is all good. Does it all fit in the box? Let's find out. Yes, it does. Cool, so I've posted all of my code up in Discord so you can have a look at that. That's literally all of this stuff here. If you haven't yet got it working, by all means, carry on trying to get that working, right? The thing with computer science is it's not like maths where it's a case of here's a problem and it'll take you about 5 minutes to do like 50 of those problems, sorted. With computer science, it's like here's a problem and it might take you like 6 or 7 hours. That's not to say that you should just sit down and spend 6 to 7 straight hours on it. I mean, take it in stages. The lessons, you have an hour. You have 5 hours per fortnight to work on this stuff, right? Don't expect to get it finished instantly. It's not a quick thing. That ain't. If you want quick results, I don't know, do PE or something. Do you get quick results on PE? I don't know. That's probably a stupid thing. Anyway, I think I've waffled on enough. Hopefully this has been useful. If it hasn't been useful, all I can do is apologize. If you have any suggestions on cool hats that you want me to get for the next stream, then by all means let me know. And I think that'll do.